My name is Wagner. I'm going to talk to you about this Colt 1911 today. This is a really special gun, and it's got an incredible story with it. To sort of explain it, we're going to cut back a couple of years. A guy named George Berry bought a gun out of an online auction, another Colt 1911, just like this, and it happened to have a name on the side of it. It had John J. McGinty. And George was a big history buff, just was a fan of history in general. He'd always wanted a 1911. And he had done some research into the name and found out that there was in fact a McGinty that was awarded the Medal of Honor in Vietnam, and that gun was actually cited in his Medal of Honor citation. Now, through a combination of fate, fortune, and to some extent just pure luck, George was able to find Mr. McGinty and reached out to him and just wanted to know what the story was. Unfortunately, the story was a little bit different than what he'd expected. Mr. McGinty had actually, after his citation and being awarded the Medal of Honor, had put his uniform, his sword, and that gun on display, and unfortunately the gun was stolen. Through unknown means, it had come up in this auction where it was purchased by George Berry. George, upon finding this out, returned the gun to Mr. McGinty. And then, there was some back and forth about, what did you pay for the gun? I'll reimburse you. And George said, I'm just really interested in having my own 1911. You don't need to pay me. It's stolen property. It's not rightfully mine. And what ended up happening was Mr. McGinty said, well, let me send you another one. And the one he sent him was this one, this 1911 right here, which has this incredible prop story with it. For those of you who don't know, there's sort of a fraternity amongst the Medal of Honor recipients, and Mr. McGinty became very good friends with John Finn. And John Finn was one of the sailors who was awarded the Medal of Honor for his actions during the attack at Pearl Harbor. During the attack, he was a senior aviation ordnanceman, and he jumped on a Catalina training mount and returned fire for about 2 hours before being wounded several times. Despite being wounded several times, he refused to seek medical attention until he was directly commanded. And when he was directly commanded, he found a young petty officer in med bay. And that young petty officer comes up to him and says, Mr. Finn, I'm this young petty officer. I have a problem. The night before, that petty officer, who was on the USS Arizona, had signed out a 1911 for shore patrol. Well, after the attack, the armory that the gun needed to be returned to was underwater, and so he comes up to John Finn and says, I need to give this to somebody, you're an aviation ordnanceman, and John Finn takes it. John keeps the gun, and as you can see right here, very common practice, he actually removed the U.S. property marking on the gun that would normally be right above the serial number. If you look at that under an extreme level of magnification, you actually can see some fragments of lettering that does appear to be correct. But that was a very common process because people did not want to have their guns marked U.S. property, think they were stolen, things like that. So John Finn and Mr. McGinty become great friends. They know each other because they're both Medal of Honor recipients. And when George Berry gives back the McGinty's own Medal of Honor cited gun, McGinty sends him the John Finn gun. Now, what it makes the story even more incredible is this story was picked up everywhere. It was picked up by the Associated Press, became this really great, heartwarming story, and there was a whole bunch of other stuff that was added into it. Originally, John McGinty, excuse me, I've been referring to him as Mr. McGinty because John and John will get extremely confusing. Mr. McGinty sent him one of his own challenge coins. When Medal of Honor recipients get challenge coins, it's sort of like a limited mint. They're allowed to give them out to whoever they want for whatever reasons. But a group of sort of people that had picked up the story and were intrepid managed to actually find one of John Finn's original challenge coins from when he got it in 1941, which is really an incredible find. This is a really, really incredible gun. It's very well known. It comes with a boatload of documentation. Both coins, several pieces of memorabilia explaining the story, original newspapers from when the story was first run, including in the Marine Times. This is a really incredible gun. It's going to be going into our November 17th and 18th sale. Our pre-auction estimate is going to be $8,000 to $12,000.